Here we go towards the sun, ready for another rock and roll. They be singing their cadence in the back road and has a little bit of step on it. For the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, truckers, plumbers, electricians, 4 miles and armies, pledge your allegiance, legions. Rainbow dragon, aka priestess or the goddess, get that double trouble. After midnight, more the priestess. In the sun, more the dragon. By the moon, more the priestess. Pledge your allegiance, legions. Heading straight home to do the laundry. To do the laundry, and do a little bit of that composting. It's noon. Heading from downtown Montreal. Just had a meeting with a good acquaintance who, let's say, my lawyer who did some pro bono work for me. Is I had some misunderstandings, and now I'm marching in the sun, and it's not always easy, you know, for neurodivergence to fully integrate completely in the neurotypical world, the 99.56%, and us neurodivergents, we can be weird and awkward, but you know, I'm good at rock and roll, good at geopolitics, good at working out those 3 things 24/7. That's what we do 24/7 enough for my face. Now we're gonna focus on going all the way, on the go and on the know. And I gotta appreciate these beautiful flowers here. You gotta get on that appreciation. Always love to see people working out, training and exercising, a little bit of that good jogging. It's always good, you know, to get it on the love, and we gotta get it on those butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, and the firefighters, the grocery store clerks, those doing that exercise. For the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, that is downtown Montreal, and you know, we love our friends here, so we're going west. We're in west now. We're coming from the east, going west. If you are to position yourself, of course, in a manner which is a plateau, and of course, I gotta appreciate that beautiful flowers there. I see those yellows, so I love yellow flowers, as you can see from hundreds of my videos. And although red is my favorite, and that's what it is with that, and we gotta get on that, you know. So that's what it is with the loving, and those who are, of course, look at that. You have art here, a little bit of art, and that's what it is with that, and that's what it is with the rock and roll. And those were building the expos in 1967. They have an architectural complex. It looks like the Babylonian ziggurats. If you know a little bit of architecture, the Sumerian and the Babylonian ziggurats. So there's a mixture of the ziggurats in the modern style, and those, you know. It is a mixture, of course, of those things which we got and those things which we have to get doing like that, and that's how we rock and roll with them. In 1967, my wish is to see them painted all different colors, like green and red and rainbow. That would be so much beautification, and that's what we're gonna do. That's how we're gonna rock and roll with that, and we're gonna get that beautification doing. And here we got a little bit of a historical information, both in French and in English, about my city, Hawk Island, Montreal, in this life and in another. And of course, you can see the gateway to a different times here. This title reminds me of my past lives, previous incarnations, and here we're going now to do some laundry, because I had some business this morning, and I gotta send out a little thanks to all who do their fair share sometimes, you know, pro bono, because I'm broke, but rich in rock and roll, dancing. Finances are low, as many Canadians, brothers and sisters in the United States are. But of course, morale is high, and you know, I have my routine, and it's not all about the money, sometimes. And salutations to those lawyers who do their time to do some pro bono, you know, because there's a lot of innocent people being represented, and in certain cases, a lot of misunderstandings as they can happen. And you know, sometimes it's just a little bit of an apology. Just let me know, you know, if I wronged you directly, or if you think, and then I could apologize. And whatever, you know, just let me know, because I don't know too many things of the social nature, and I have Asperger's, so I'm not good at social reality, social conditions, social interactions can be more difficult for Aspies, and it's a lifelong condition. It's not an illness. Again, please, 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 I am not a disease. I am not a disease, you know, and I love the sun, I love life, I love chocolate, I love men and women, you know, because I played that rainbow like that flag. I think that's a fellow LGBTQ flag there, although I see it a bit blurred because I was prescribed a little bit of those. I was prescribed some, of course. I was prescribed some glasses, but financially it's too much of a burden right now to get those glasses. So for the truckers, firefighters, gotta love some firefighters, you know. Always on my marches, gotta think about the firefighters. Somebody make them some good loving. The butchers, the bakers, the truckers, nurses, daycare workers, changing some diapers, you know. All the workers, from the plumbers, the welders, public workers, always marching for the North American Collective Workers' Party. And, you know, it's Arbeit, Arbeit, Arbeit. I just drank an extra large coffee, I think for the first time. I had $2, so I got an extra large coffee. And that's what it is, an extra large coffee. That's what it is with that, an extra large coffee. And that was a little bit of that coffee taking, I think a bit much for taking an extra large in the morning. But nonetheless, it was I'm pretty intense now. And that's how our nature sometimes is, intense, super focused, super concentrated. But I'm somebody who doesn't like violence, you know. I just don't like violence. I like sports, fitness, rock and roll, and loving and dancing. And it's always dancing, sports, fitness, rock and roll, and that's what it is now, and that's what we are, you know, in the condition of the plurality where we absorb our daily interactions and our communications and all the wellness which we have together, because a lot of people deserve second and third chances, you know. A lot of people deserve second and third chances. Second and third chances, a lot of people deserve it. And I always say, you know, I served my time because I was depressed, suicidal, and I moved in 2015, and that 2015, I thought it was 2016, but it seems like it was July 2015, and this is the last day of July, so always I want to point out that we have older school architecture here. If you're interested in Montreal, Hawk Island, come a little bit with us. And now I'm a bit concerned about the recent escalation in the tariff war with our greatest partner, our greatest family member, because we're a great collective family, and that's how we got, and that's how we rock and roll, you know. To get it on the zone with that, to get it for those who are involved in the production, distribution of food. And think about it now, that's 35%. And if it starts tomorrow, that 35% is going to be very nefarious for all our economic endeavors as a whole, right? Because whether we integrate the truth, reality of our economic stance, our economic realities, is 35% tariff, and thinking about that, our exports are 75%, between 75% and 90%. Between 75% and 90%, they're of course integrated in the dimensions of which we have of our North American collective. It is enough, suffice it to say, that of course, it is suffice it to say that our dimensions of the realities of our binational economic, social, financial prowess is dependent, as Canadians, is dependent upon the US. But also it's reciprocal as well, because it's a bifurcal. What I call the bifurcal or the bipolar paradox. And again, don't think about it in bipolarity, and I want to mention that. Don't think about bipolarity in the geopolitical sense. And I want to mention that. See that? My anonymous friend the other day posed a very interesting question, which kind of made me go on and on and on and on because of Asperger's. You have to let me know when to stop. So she asked the question, how much can it resist the pressure? Right? So that's mathematics, right? Because the pressure to withstand, you have to look at how it's built, and then how is the pressure put in, you know? How's the pressure put in? So those bolts, those of course mathematical concerns, the X versus Y, or Y pressing on the X, is of course of a mathematical nature. So we took a look in depth, and we of course explored a little bit more in depthness, and of course we have to be concomitant of course to them who of course allow us to be integrative in our whole complexities of the dynamics of the societal nature which we endeavor us to be on those propositions of all the domain references, because here we're in the public, right? So here being that we're in the public, it is concomitant and congruent to the question which she posed, my anonymous friend. And if I make a man, I'm gonna give a man clause, 4 letters, and red, red, that's my favorite. If that's a D or a no, what is it? Red, my favorite color. And how many points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the question she posed is, how much pressure can that barrier withstand? So we have to take into account how it's built, the thickness and the possibility of the kind of the velocity, the pressure, right, with the force and the volume. So the whole weight of the water and how fast, basically the speed of it, how much pressure can it withstand? These, and I guess I can ask fellow pressure there. See, this was the question she posed, and I guess those who build it, they kind of have an idea exactly how it was built on the go. Because see, that can withstand a certain amount of pressure. So I try to calculate estimation. I would say it's strong enough to withstand quite a considerable amount of pressure, right? So this pressure is built against the fortifications. And being that I have past lives incarnations when I was a soldier of ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, ancient Babylon, ancient Sumer, that always, of course, consequently and prudently, of course, integrates all my dynamics which we have on the interaction and all the aspects of our daily living to consequently accord. And that's what it is, and that's what it is with that, you know. So as we go towards the sun, my Pope the King the Sun, we did a little bit of that meditation there parallel. So back to today, you know, and once again, please, Aspies, we are not a disease. I am an individual sovereign citizen Aspie of the North American Collectif of Quebec, Canada, and I got that Canada tatted up, and you know it's a Dragon versus Trump event, and have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match ever since 2018, because that's when Donald Trump started kind of the trade war and decided to impose 10% tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. No, correction, it was 10%. Correction, it was 10%. Excusez-moi, vous êtes un cinéaste? Quoi? Je sais pas, c'est quoi? Si vous êtes un cinéaste? Hein? Ah ok, je pensais que vous étiez un cinéaste du Québec. Excusez-moi, je vais pas vous déranger. J'étais pas sûr, là. I wanted to ask if he was, I thought he was a cinematographer, but of a famous Québécois who was smoking a cigar, and he looked a bit like Michel Paré. For a second I thought it was Michel Paré. He looked a bit like him, but I said, oh my gosh, I always wanted forever to meet Michel Paré, but I'm not going to go into Quebec cinematography because I am a Quebecer, Canadian, Quebecer, North American, and I do that bilingualism, and that's how I rock and roll here from Montreal. But I thought that was Michel Paré for a second, so interjection there, but he said no, and I guess maybe he was, but he said no, he didn't want like, I'm not a paparazzi, you know, stuff like sometimes they need the privacy. If I become famous, I guess I would have to be different, because I am different due to Asperger's, so I'm not as the majority, you know. I'm part of this tiny minority of less than 1%, less than half of a percent, 0.44%. So we have difficulties in 3 main areas of problematics for us Aspies due to the brain mutations which we have at the microscopic level. They're not visible exterior on the cranium, and of course, being that they're not visible on the cranium, that's why they have to be implemented in a proposition manner. And that's what it is, and that's what we got, you know. So it's something which we have to be operating a lot, and that's a little bit of that good loving with that. And I always love to see people exercising, and that's what we got, you know. That's what we got with that rock and roll, you know. I always get to hear my fellow citizens, aunties, cousins here in Quebec have a little bit of that laughter and have a little bit of amusement, and that's what it is with the go and see this beautiful downtown. So Asperger's is not a mental illness. Neurological mental divergent condition makes us predisposed to special interests, and those special interests, of course, make us predisposed to those special activities, such as for me, the special interests, of course, are relegated to different dimensions of the solidarity of whatever we have, and that's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. And there you go, you know, you have a little bit of that beauty. Gotta salute the public workers, train conductors, and make good use of that bench, make good use of that box, make good use of that boxing. And I will to volunteer and build some water fountain. I'm just gonna dedicate to build the water fountain if you must help, and because this is public and I go sometimes. I've been going for a few years, and like 3.5 years, and since it was built. So that's always something which I love to endeavor and to love. And here's the beautiful downtown Montreal, and I love to see that fellow citizens are taking advantage. Just hygiene, public hygiene. I try to keep the public hygiene during COVID, because I had COVID back in February 2020 and I survived it. Between February 2020 and March 2020, I had COVID, and I survived COVID. I survived COVID. It was like death, pestilence, and disease, really. But I survived it. And having survived that, I take every day like a carpe diem type of scenario. And that's how I live to the fullest extent of the possibilities of which are open for me as a neurodivergent, part of this tiny small community with myself and other aspies. We always have to build bridges, sometimes small bridges, medium-sized bridges, big bridges, or extra large bridges. So within those 4 categories, of course, there could be 4 other subcategories. So you'd have 4 main ones and 4 subcategories of bridges. The wider the length, and then all the dimensions, which I'm not gonna go into a mathematical tangent, but if you're an aspie, like me, part of the 0.44%, we're not a lot, you know that aspie can have a special interest, bridges. And aspies, any aspies whose special interest is bridges, we can trade and we can discuss. We can trade and we can discuss knowledge and information, all related to bridges, the dimensions, the fabrication date, the amount of steel, the amount of metal, everything that is conclusive, anything that is conclusive to all the interactions which we have, of course, as an individual sovereign citizens. And of course, the special interests are, of course, conducive to all our dynamics of life, which are fully integrated in our daily activities. And look, there's some white lotus. Where the baby in the lotus is. My Avenger. That's the HYHORS. White lotus, see? That's the white lotus. White lotus. That's what it is with the white lotus, and that's it, that's all. White lotus, man. That white lotus, so many, I count 44 all the way. I say 44. I'm just saying 44 because I was thinking of the building of the tunnels, which we gotta build, you know. So that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get going on that. Look at that. That's the privilege of civilization right there. Hey, public transport. And that was my thesis back in 2023. In the privilege of civilization, of course, is something which we have to endeavor on the go. So that is just something which we have to appellate. And of course, completely suffuse in the manners of suffusion integrally to our current North American collective geopolitical situation. Before I go into geopolitics, just want to finalize on the problems we Aspies face. And I would recommend, thank you to my anonymous friend again, who put up with me so much. I guess several times more than, I would say, Ozzy, his wife. I think they were married 45 years? Close to 45, almost 45 years? Maybe, something like that. Ozzy and his wife, of course. We're married. Sharon. We're married for many years. Almost 45. It's quite something, eh? Me, I'm androgynous, pansexual. You get that 50-50 due to many reincarnations, many past lives. But of course, it's something which we have to be doing on that go. We gotta get it on the go, and that's how we gotta get drilling on that, you know. Things are going on the left and on the right, and we're gonna get it on the left. That's something which is consequential, which we see on the things which we have, you know, and something which we have on the go. See this red and white categories, the red and white. Gotta get it on that go and on that red, you know, something which we have to implement and continuously, of course, integrate in all our divisional aspects of our lives, and that's how we have to be doing on that, eh? Yeah. That's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know. Sometimes which we gotta meditate upon our situations and all, of course, the situational aspects of which we endeavor ourselves to be, and building those bridges, small, medium, and big size bridges, and that's how we do on the daily basis. Although the three main problems Aspie's face, lack of friends, and I don't will to make any friends, but except friends with benefits from now on. Friends with benefits from now on. Friends with benefits. So I don't will to waste nobody's time, eh? I don't will to waste nobody's time. That's the it's the 31st of July now. So being that I don't want to will anybody's time is something, of course, which you have to get on the conclusive side of all the aspects of our civilizational lives, which we are, of course, and where we interact with the society. So lack of friends is a problem. Other problem is high depression and suicidal rates. I was depressed, I was suicidal for many years. Many years. About 3 years. Kind of since 2015, no, 2 years and a half. Well, maybe 3.5 years. Real severe depression and suicidals. And of course, Aspie's is 9 times higher. The depression and suicidal rates is 9 times higher. 9 times higher. 9 times higher. 9 times higher. 9 times, eh? And keep in mind that we're a tiny small fraction of the population of 0.44%. 0.44%. That's what it is, you know. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the situational aspects of all our daily activities which we endeavor ourselves to be. And the third one would be high unemployment rate. The high unemployment rate, 80%. 80%, so it stands at 80%. Think about that. 80% is 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5, that's 11 times higher than the neurotypicals, the 99.56%. 11 times, 80%. 80% is 4/5. Can you imagine that? How much it is the difference? Just compute that mathematically. So that's 4 out of 5. 80%. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing. So those 3 problems, and unfortunately my only problem right now is really economic, financial, commercial. Economic, financial, commercial. Besides economic, financial, commercial is something which, of course, we gotta get on that going. And besides economic, commercial, financial aspects is not something which I don't have to realize on the conclusive side of loving, and being that I will to love and I love in my way, I guess. And sometimes we're direct, we're direct, and that's how we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing for the love, and that is something which we gotta get on that side, because love is also by action. So we might not necessarily verbalize compassion or empathy, but we might just say, for example, that we do things, you know. So that can be a problem for people who are non-aspies, the neurotypical world. I don't like to use the non-asp because we have to build bridges. I'm not antagonistic. I don't have resentments. I don't have what do you say? I don't have resentments. I don't have antagonistic sentiments towards you, the 99.56%. But as many aspies, I suffered from unemployment for years, and I don't remember much of my life prior to spring 2014. Spring 2014. Spring 2014. Spring 2014. Spring 2014. And of course, spring 2014 was, of course, an event which, of course, capitalized the whole dynamics of the situation of all those events in my life prior to that spring 2014, which I do not have retrograde amnesia, so I got memory loss, you know. My memory is good, but the memory before what happened, you know, I just have flashes of trauma. I was attacked by surprise and a few years ago, more than 11 years ago. So 2014 is already 11 years plus. So I hit my head on the concrete, and of course hit my head on the concrete and had a dislocated right arm. I was bloodied up. I went to the Jewish General Hospital. I'm still gonna go retrieve the archives maybe next week. It's something that I gotta do as I'm cleaning before the full moon in Leo, because I'm also a mystic parallel to a philosopher, artist, athlete, and independent geopolitical thinker, theorist, analyst, and strategist. So I develop strategies for the North American Collective mostly, or NORAD, NATO specifically for binational strategies. And of course that is my multiplicity of the domain in which I discuss geopolitics. That's my kingdom basically, and that's what I do on a daily basis and have done with this routine for years and years and years. So I have a routine, you know. Look at those planes. Are they military? Maybe. Look a little bit at military, and how's the Air Forces? How's that NORAD? How's that building of the... I see how my brain now works. I trying to calculate, approximate my distance from them, but it's a moving distance, so it's always increasing. But versus that one's increasing, but this one's, the distance is actually decreasing, right? So me versus, but not versus, not in an antagonistic way, but now we're co-equivalent in terms of the altitude. And of course the distance, that's just aspie traits, you know. I was trying to calculate the distance and the speed based on its estimations, because I'm not a cyborg. I wouldn't know. Unless I am a cyborg, then I wouldn't even know that I'm a cyborg, cybernetic organism who's just living life by eating and lusting and being androgynous pansexual. I guess that would be something functionality about it. And that's the second home where we go often on the mountain. That is the antenna on the mountain right there. You can see the antenna, and that's miles and miles and far off. That's kilometers away though. That's Mount Royal, and those are new skyscrapers. And it's quite a nice city here. It's just we love our French, so if you come here, please eat all Quebec cuisine, Canadian Quebec. If you're in Quebec, eat Quebec cuisine. And that's what we have to be doing on that. And that's what we have to get doing on the love, you know. So it's something which we have to be on the transgressive side of all the appellative of which we have in our daily life and daily activities, to be on all the side of things which we have, and all, of course, all the life activities which infuse us with all the domain and the levels of our physicality and our experiences and our well-being as aspies, because we have those three main problems. And I'm not a disease, I'm not a mental illness, I'm just different, you know. And that difference is sometimes marked by others' perceptions and being bizarre and awkward sometimes, you know. And certain things I don't get. Certain things I don't get, you know. But I'm happy, joyous now. I'm just a little bit on that side of things where, of course, I wouldn't know if somebody's attracted to me physically. You would have to let me know, you know. If you want to be friends with benefits, you got to be 18 plus, you know, just like adults, because you're gonna get carded. And poodles I love and I can pet, except for other pets. The fur makes me sneeze. The fur, you know, that achoo, achoo, choo, choo. So that is always something which I have to do. Build bridges. And we gotta build bridges. And we gotta build those bridges on all levels. Big bridges, small bridges, medium-sized bridges, extra large bridges. Such as this bridge. This I guess will qualify as small, small, small. That's how we got, and that's how we gotta get that rock and roll. That's that rock and roll. And that's how we gotta get that rock and roll, you know, and that's how we gotta get on those. That's how we gotta get on that vision, and we gotta get on those levels where we are internally integrated with all the North American collective civilizational compound, and all, of course, those who endeavor to get on the behalf of fellow Aspies to understand and to appreciate Asperger's syndrome. That was the title of the book, you know. That was the title of the book. That was the title of the book. That was the title of the book. See that? That's all we have to be doing, and I thought I was gonna sing some rock and roll, and I love me some rock and roll 24/7 for the 5 hours, which is because nurses, electricians, and the plumbers and the doctors. That's what they gotta do. You got that COVID killer, and I am always wondering why there's the number 44 there, because it's in the tunnel, and you know we will to build those tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. And here we gotta be careful, because you know that pedestrians cross, and you just gotta go on the side of the things where we are prudent about all our geographical spaces and the intellectual spaces and all the spaces which we have as a public-private partnership. And I don't want to ruin the flowers, because I love those flowers with that, and gotta get it. Oh yeah, that was good. That was good with that. And that's how we're gonna get that rock and roll. And I wish first the mountains, my second home mountain, Mount Royal, Belvedere, Konjanak, and of course the other ones, which is gonna be the mountain. I want to paint the benches, because these benches need some color, eh? Look at those. And that's a few benches. See the increase. There's less there, more there, and more there. You notice the mathematical proportionality? Happiness. We're strange, weird. I was about to go on the mathematical calculation in terms of if there was co-equivalent or co-lateral, and in terms of the distance. I'm not going to discuss that, because maybe I won't stop. So before we get to the washroom there, we're going to discuss a little bit of that. Aspiness, we have characteristics, not symptoms. It's not a mental illness, it is a neurological mental divergence. We have brain mutations at the microscopic level, at the nano level, not a super big level, and I got to work on not repeating things too much, not utilizing too much sophisticated intellectual academic language, and of course not to be, of course, totally obfuscated by all our life endeavors, because due to those special interests which preoccupy, and these special interests have to be supported as much as one can in Aspies, because we tend to excel in that, because we are super focused, super concentrated, super intense in those areas. But that is the intensity where the lies is, where of course we have to get prudent on the go, and we have to of course meditate on all our life activities to be fully alive and fully immersed in the neurotypical world. So I love this. There's some art, more art like this I would love to have. So see you in a bit. Go to the washroom. The washroom was pretty clean. And please keep it clean and don't pollute, and wash your hands. I did wash mine, and that's what it is with the go. And now we're heading back into the sun. It's a chillier day than yesterday. It's a bit spring-like, almost beginning of autumn, but supposed to get another heat wave. I think it's going to be the 6th from June to now, July, last day of July. So of course it's all our aspects of our endeavors, of our characteristics of which we have, are of course proponent to living together with you and working together, because it's unacceptable that Aspies have 80% unemployment, and being that we're so tiny of a community, because not a lot of people know what Asperger's is. Even yesterday I had a bit of a suffering, I guess, because somebody said it's a disease, it's une maladie, said in French. Said no, it's not a disease. Yes, we are less able, less capable in certain things, yeah, of course. So that's why I gotta thank my anonymous friend. If I make $1 million, I'm gonna give $1 million, $500,000, and who of course gifted me a book called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. So appreciating Asperger's syndrome is of course appreciating Asperger's syndrome, which totally immerses the characteristics and discusses at large. And I gotta thank for that book specifically. It was loaned to me, and that's what it is, and that's what it is with that, and that's what I gotta get going. So basically, that book of course made me know a little bit about my vulnerabilities as an Aspie, how the perceptions and the interactions and the weirdness can of course sometimes land us in a certain legal matters, sometimes legal before the courts, before the courts, because of misunderstandings and not knowing certain things or doing certain things in public which are not to be done in public necessarily, certain things, X, Y, Z, A, So I'm not gonna go further into detail because that can happen, for Aspies without even necessary. So we have to be told. So that can happen, and others can take advantage, or others can. I learned a lot from that book about myself, my difference, and how I have to build these bridges and have to work on my characteristics and interacting with the neurotypical you, the 99.56%, such as not getting too close in conversation, breaching personal space is often a characteristic of Aspie traits and characteristics, not symptoms. Again, I don't use symptoms, nor do I use for special interest, obsessive interest, because it doesn't render justice. Yes, I can spend hours and hours and hours super focused, concentrated in working out, training, exercising, composing rock and roll songs, or doing geopolitical theoretical analysis. Geopolitical theoretical analysis. I'm a geopolitical thinker, philosopher, and theoretical analyst and strategist. And now I'm going to go into geopolitics because that is where I find one of my homes of the three special interests among rock and roll and sports and fitness, dancing being my favorite sport. So as we rock and roll together on this journey towards the empire, and that's what we have to get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on that rock and roll. So it's something which we have togetherness, we have in our collective. Now Trump has further escalated, and keep in mind that it's a Dragon versus Trump event for the Fusion Canada United States, my way to Fuse Canada United States best. Granddaddy Trump, I have been challenging to fight me in a boxing match ever since 2018. Thank you, my anonymous friend, again. I still have those red gloves, auctioning them for $1 million to give half to my anonymous friend, half of the $1 million. I auction them, auction starts at $1 million, so they can go do on that. So the auction starts at $1 million. And of course it starts at $1 million. And of course, due to the fact that it starts at $1 million, it can go further. Because I will to build a 4. Now I'm going to discuss my will. First, bury me when I die with Papa Crowley at 3rd of me in Hampton, New Jersey. Like that Ozzy Osbourne song. Mr. Crowley, Mr. Crowley. I made a remix of that. Mr. Crowley, why you my papa? Father, I didn't know. How come? You done set up and done told her. They don't like me, got an Aspie. I don't like. I get clean, I get back dirty. I get dirty, get back clean. Mr. Crowley, that's your spleen. What you dictate back in pyramids. And a 3rd of me, But in ancient Egypt, in the pyramids, not in ancient Egypt, but the pyramids are from there. And I believe in reincarnations. And sometimes I was born a man or woman. That's why you get that 50-50 now. Once I was born in a past life, previous incarnation, back in the US, once as a woman, post 70-76, was born twice as a man, and served in the same United States Armed Forces twice in 2 different wars, 156 years apart. Just read through a glass darkly for George Patton, loving me. Some of those yellow flowers just quadrupled my smile right there. And got those reincarnations. So back to the dragon versus Trump. Let's build the 4. I will to build the forgotten goddess temple. Greatest forgotten goddess temple. She doesn't need my temples, of course, because she's got her own there in the city of the pyramids. The city of the pyramids. Oh, this is another geopolitics. I keep on seeing them everywhere. See? That's a geopolitical aspect which I touched in the past week, and we're going to touch again. So that is, of course, the geopolitical aspect, of course, which touches upon the situational awareness that is for the Quebec separatism. So that is still an unresolved question about Quebec separatism right there. See, so I would vote no, definitely. I would vote no. I would definitely vote no, but of course somebody might vote yes. And I wouldn't mind. Don't know if I would stay or not, but that is something which I would think about it. Salut, parlez-vous français? Vous avez vu ça? Je vous demande, peux-tu vous poser une question? Ça dit oui pour le Québec libre. Vous voterez-vous oui? Hein? Vous? Parce que ça, c'est pour le séparatisme. Là. Vous voyez le collant, là? Ça dit oui, Québec libre. Voterez-vous oui pour ça, soutenir un Québec indépendant comme pays? Moi, non, mais je sais pas si je resterai pareil, je pense.
Ben oui, c'est stupide.
Ah ouais, bye. She smiled, so I asked the question if she would vote. But she didn't fully understand, I don't think. But I don't know if she did or not. Maybe she did. Maybe she knows the referendum geopolitics. And of course, that is geopolitics for yours truly. To get it on the go for the rock and roll and get it on those life-affirming situations. And here you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful here when you cross the streets, you know, because sometimes they got those crossing of the streets there, and we gotta get it on those micro levels, and that's what we have to be doing, you know, to get it on the appellations for getting on those drills and get on those drills, get on those XYZ loving, and you know, we gotta get that love for the youth, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, the plumbers, the electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And that's how we gotta get on that loving side of things, where we got to get that getting on the go. That's where we gotta get living, man, you know. So I don't know if I would stay if there would be a yes. Probably, but I will for the fusion of Canada and United States. So back, of course, to the universal aspects of the daily activities of our daily lives, to be situational awareness and to get it on that love side of things and the love side of our coming togetherness in the coming Imperial March, because it can't be just based on strength and freedom. We gotta get on that strength and on that freedom, and the true north strong and free. The king is absent, my fellow Canadians. The king is absent. You know, I didn't like the fact that the Prime Minister pledged allegiance to the king. Rather, pledge allegiance to the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, all those plumbers, electricians, and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, the warehouse workers, all those, of course, crossing the railway conductors, delivering some cheese, some bacon in the trucks, and those daycare workers changing some diapers, Hydro-Quebec workers, construction workers, electricians, the welders, and you know, all the public workers changing the aqueducts, the sewers, and doing the reconstruction work, the rehabilitation work, and all, of course, the consequential prudence and affirmations of all our dynamics of which we interact together with each other in a matter which we can resolve. And see here, you can get a little bit of that coming in and taking a little bit of those ducks, if you will, to have a little bit of adventure. This is just part of the river, and let's build some more bridges together. Adrian Hanna Dragon, independent artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist and mystic. Build some big bridges, small bridges, big bridges, medium-sized bridges, extra large bridges, and now rock and rolling with the Dragon versus Trump. You know, I of course will to challenge Donald Trump and build the four, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border that way south. On the Canadian-US border, the biggest ever sports complex arena. Let's build it together, and of course to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. The Caesar Superdome, of course, is something like the Caesar Superdome, which is the appellation, of course, of the things which we have to do it on the go, and we have to do it on the left and on the right and in the middle and in the purposefulness where we are together, that we have to be appellative of all the loving dynamics of our coming empire. So basically the fundamental aspects are that I will to build together with you on the Canadian-US border the biggest ever sports complex arena ever built, to be bigger 11 times than the Caesar Superdome. 4 wins. Caesar Superdome. Actually, it was called before, it was called the Mercedes-Benz. And before that, it was called the Louisiana Superdome. It changed names several times, just like I changed my name. And of course, the Louisiana Superdome is where my 49ers lost, but it's still one of my top favorite 5 Super Bowls. Lost to the Niners in the Super Bowl 47, which had several nicknames: Bro Bowl, Super Bowl, Bro Bowl, aka Bro Ball, aka Super Bowl, aka Bro Bowl, aka Harbaugh Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, Super Bowl 47. My Niners lost only by 3, but it's a loss. So let's build 11 times bigger than that Caesar Superdome Palace, where several Super Bowls were played there, actually. So in actuality, there were several Super Bowls, which of course had been played before. There are several Super Bowls. And me and Donald Trump were going to inaugurate it by fighting, because Granddaddy Trump made a mistake. That's not the way to invite Canadians to join the what's called in Confederation Articles of Confederation and what's called Perpetual Union. You know, there were 13 original states, right? 13 original 1776, and from 13 they want to expand to 50. So we're gonna add in the Imperial Republican Constitution, which we're gonna formulate together, a new constitution, to fuse Canada and United States into the 63, because it's not one state, it's 13, right? Because we got 10 provinces, 3 territories, so we're gonna add 13 just like the original, by providence. You understand? But by my way, my vision, a gross public-private partnership, my democratic republicanism, pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrism, which when I say it's North American centric, that is my universal revolutionary centrism. The dynamics of the interplay is that it is a congruent centrism, which of course is appellative and of course tied hand in hand with my trinity of theories, you know, my trinity of theories, which is the CIT, DRT, Natural Fusion Theory, and the DFT. Beautiful. Thank you for making the plateau here on the go as I cross. And we have, whoop, I almost stepped on those rocks. I didn't mean to. We're coming in 4 rocks or 5 rocks. Somebody might have been appellative to go, and that's all we have to be doing, you know. So it is something which we have to be consistent about. The visualization and the visualization of all our interactions is the fact that we are on the normative side of turning our heads left and right, and of course making of course the symphony and the synchronization of all our life endeavors and activities, as we are consequently and imprudently get to be done together here, together. So let's build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum on the Canadian-US border. And of course, on the Canadian-US border, we're gonna fight me and Donald Trump and implement my DRT. And along with that, we're gonna build the House of the Dragon. Scarlet, crimson, crimson, scarlet. Scarlet and crimson. Our shades are red, basically. Shades of red. Scarlet, crimson, our shades of red. My favorite color. RED, like the hat that I'm wearing. And before I had a red hoodie on, but that of course changed a bit. We're gonna take it through here. Now we're gonna zigzag it. Zigzag a little bit to change a little bit of dynamic, because usually we go by the Louis Cyr, by Louis Cyr Park. There's a park there that we pass. It's called Louis Cyr. And Louis Cyr was a strong man from the 90s. I met him in a past life from 1904. I did a little bit of arm wrestling, and it's a bit quite sore after, to say the least. Anyway, so we're gonna build the 4 in a few Canada United States, and let's sign the Articles of Perpetual Union, Perpetual Republican Imperial Union. And here, one of the 63 is Quebec, and we're gonna continue to have bilingualism in Quebec. And basically across the 13, basically, and I think we can make that compromise to understand fully 9 million, 10 million Quebecers that we gonna love a little bit of that French like Celine Dion. What beautiful flowers. This is a 9+ there. In terms of gardening, I love those yellows, and adds a little bit of that special smile on my face. I love those yellows. Encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. Now with the added pressure in the geopolitics, that we have to be clear-minded and understand fully that economically, financially, commercially, where the biggest trading partner is by far the United States, between 75%, that's 3/4, and 90%. Just keep that in mind for the moment. And there's no way that, because of the economic problems that are also faced now by other countries, there's no way that we can actually, in actuality, in reality, replace the US market. We could replace maybe 10%, 15, 25 max in 3.5 years. Maximum. Because the European Union and other countries, they have their internal economic, financial, commercial problems. They're not flourishing. Their GDP is not necessarily increasing exponentially. Their economics, even Germany, the economic, financial, commercial, innovative center of the European Union still is still struggling as well. And of course, not to say the paradox, which I'm going to say again, because I take great pride in my geopolitical work. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I have proof of work. I have the video. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. 2019 in October, November, I have predicted what's happening now. So that is, of course, a long way. And of course, I'm just gonna, for their safety, because I have the backpack on, I'm moving fast, I'm just gonna derail a little bit of that, although they're going on the side there. I thought they were coming forwards, and I saw that they were carrying something. I see blurred, so I wasn't sure what it was, but from closer by, it was a young infant. And I just wanted to take a few steps just for their safety, security, because I'm moving fast, so they're young, and just gotta, I'm marching, working on military pace. And if you do the same, is of course on the jogging, and we gotta get it on the go, and we gotta get it on the go, so that's all we got, so it's something which we have, so it's something which we gotta motivate ourselves, and we gotta get it on that. What is that? Red. What is that red, man? I can't tell what is written there. Somebody for me. Can you tell? I just love the color. I thought it said Dragonami. I said, don't do this. I just put pamphlet stickers and do it online. Dragonami. Agent Hannah Dragons, the Empire's the husband and the wife of every citizen of the Empire. The wife and the husband and of every citizen. I'm making a reference to Caesar, which had homosexual relations, of course. And I love my homos, because I love to do that. Homosexual, We're between adults, of course. So that's what it is, and that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get on that rock and roll, man. And here, interesting that the name of this street is Workman. Workman. So workmen, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, nurses as well, firefighters, those in the food industry, doing a little bit of that food industry and shaping some of that bread buns, and the bakers. Now I think about them because it's a NACWP. Let's form, constitute together the North American Collective Workers Party, and of course it's pledge allegiance, our family, and Adrian Hanna Dragon, I guess, is every man's wife and every worker's wife and every worker's husband, I guess. And so, see some names of the streets here. Chemin de la Station. That's a road of the station, you know, so a station road for you, and that's how we have to be on all the sides of all the love sides where we have and where we love. And then I love to see love, and love to see couples holding hands and the couples holding hands, you know. People laughing joyously and public workers there. It's okay, I guess they get paid by the hour, and we need to mass reconstruct the public workers. It's a public-private partnership fundamentally, and this restaurant, La Belle Province, I strongly recommend it. Strongly recommend it. That one's closed, but if you get any La Belle Province, you want to experience some Quebecer fast food, please do. We still have a few open. That is somewhere where, of course, my financial stress aside, is something where I wouldn't mind eating, I guess, every day. Every day, a fast food from Quebec, fast food from in the morning from Quebec, in the night from the US, or vice versa. Sometimes the other one, sometimes another one, you know, just change a little bit, do a little bit of that change, and a little bit of that materialness, and do a little bit of that vigor with it. And that's what we gotta get doing on that, and we gotta get doing on the love things of the love, and that's what we have to be doing. And what this says is firefighters, gotta send some firefighters. So that's French. Caserne des pompiers, that means pompier is firefighters in French. So learn some French, you know. If you come here and just make an effort, and you're more than welcome to do it. That's what that means. Caserne des pompiers. That's firefighters, and gotta love our firefighters and our public workers, and that's just how we're gonna rock and roll in the sun now as we go for the Dragon vs. Strum Collective, and gotta admire some of those special flowers there. I actually like these flowers. See? Thank you, public workers. It's quite beautification of the city, which is important, I find, because in the urban landscapes, in the spring, summer, and of course autumn, is nice to have flowers like this. As of course somebody who has a small space, a nice garden, I always admire, because I treat the world like a garden. And you know, I've been through hell and back, been depressed, suicidal, and crossing Canada coast to coast made me come out of my depression. That I established the strongest spirit of call with my fellow Quebecers, Canadians, Quebecers. In 2017, correction, I crossed Canada coast to coast. October, November, I crossed Canada coast to coast. You know, that made me establish the strongest spirit of call with my fellow Canadians, Quebecers, and my brothers and sisters in the USA as well, to do it on the go and to do it on the now, and that's what we gotta love it, you know. And that's all we got, and that's what we gotta rock and roll, see? And that's what we gotta get drilling, man. I gotta check a little bit of that flower pot there. See, you know, yellow flowers, I love yellow, and I think this is kind of nice how the mixture is here with the flowers, so please don't pollute. So it's the public workers, and I always like that. I always like that. I always like that. That's what we got. And that's pink. I like that pink color there. See? Color like that, I could do more. Actually, that pink colors like this, I would love to see more and more and more. Like this type of colors. Blue, that would be so nice. All benches to be like this, I would actually love that. That would be really nice. This bright colors, you know, like that. And that's how we got, and that's how we got to rock and roll, and that's how we got to get that drill, you know. My cousins there, my fellow family here, Quebecers, Canadians, and sometimes we're dysfunctional, but I don't like violence. I'm somebody who doesn't like violence. That's why I am hyper vigilant, because I got my trauma, my scars on the body and trauma, and all the things that I lived through is of course part of my vision. I don't know before spring 2014 if I was a junkie. Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Was I doing alcohol? Sometimes alcoholic. When you drink alcohol for a few years intensely, you can get a retrograde amnesia, memory loss. So I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014. What's more important is all my work prior, post to me moving from that moldy small place in Côte des Neiges, where it's very moldy place in Côte des Neiges, very moldy, full of mold. Underneath, I was in like a prison cell, so I guess I served my time a little bit. So having served my time a little bit with that is something which we have to get on the level of all the things which we appreciate. Where I live now, it's better, and I wouldn't like moving and only the financials. Yeah, but now I'm financially stressed, but still grateful, thankful. I'm gonna be able to pay my rent, paid my electricity bill. I gotta pay my phone ASAP. Something that's just something which I gotta do. I think I'm gonna have a late fee because I'm gonna be late, but I gotta do it ASAP. So I think this weekend I'm just gonna go pay the phone, and that is something which I gotta check my bill again and pay the electricity bill. That's always paid every month, and the rent, and that's always something to handle when it comes to the bills, and to all our financial dealings with each other. We have to get consequential and imprudence, and also cross the street safely, because you never know, you know, the cars might malfunction, the electricity or the brake snaps, the citizen driver presses the accelerator instead of the brake. So even at the lights, I always consequently, of course, say that you should exercise some prudence when it comes to crossing the streets, whether you are integrally on different side of the roads, or your position vis-a-vis the crossing of the streets should always be, although in theory this is one way, so in theory you don't need that much prudence here, right? But you still need some, because you never know. People are stressed, people are in a hurry, people are meeting deadlines, people are more and more in debt, and people are stressed, and all the factors for our individual security and the individual sovereign citizen and the collective. It's always a balance between the two. A balance between the two. It's all the balance between the two. All the balance between the two. And that balance takes individual effort and collective effort. So back to geopolitics, and if tariffs of 35% are going to be added on Canada tomorrow, that's more than a third. So keep in mind that could be problematic, to the point of being very problematic. We already start to have problems now, and what I'm going to say next, you have to get on that say next. And that's how we love to do, and that's how we love to get in on that, go with that. And that is something, is that? No, that's 4. I don't know if that's a cultural reference again, but you can write it in black and white, and of course all the color of the rainbow, black and white and red and green, and that's how you can do, of course, to write it in, and that's how you could do, of course, for the satisfaction of the plurality of yes, saying yes, that 2 + 2 = 4, but you don't have to write it all in one color solely, or 2 colors, black and white. You can write it in black and in white, and all the colors of the rainbow, green and yellow and purple, and all the other colors which interject sophistication wise and interject in a category for which we appellate ourselves, and which we dictate all our well-beings in the manner which we have conclusively and uniformly to self-impose certain restrictions on ourselves, or making compromises. See, there it is again, 2 + 3 = 5. That's from that sounds familiar. Anyways, so going to do laundry, straight to do laundry, because I got a few hours, and if I'm gonna get some of that sun, I guess I have to do it, and tomorrow's Friday, gotta clean, send messages, and write and call for do follow-ups with Asperger's related follow-ups, since it's something which I have to do consequently, and always integrally do some follow-ups in relation to all our situational awareness, where we are prudently involved in the complex of natures, and of course it is something which we have together. But 2019, gonna go back in time and back to geopolitics now. In 2019, in October, November, I had predicted that there was going to be a food waste, no food waste, no food waste, please. I just felt like going a bit of a hawk eagle. No food waste, please. Think about that, eh? Because you never know, eh? You saw how things sometimes can just change with COVID, and geopolitically it's just volatile now. The world has changed. It's a much more dangerous place. That's why we need to fuse for the coming empire and implement the new 911 total security, total service, total defense concordium, and the total security service and defense concordium, and fuse Canada, United States. And please, this sanitation here for the youth, the children, because they might pass with their parents. I think that's something which we might try to avoid as much as we can. I'm gonna assess here, where can I go by that side, and I don't want to impede in their labor. But here we got the statue of Louis XVI, and that's Louis XVI statue here. This is a nice garden. And no, I can't go through there. Let's see. Okay, there's work there, so I'm gonna have to go around. Passe par là pour aller à la lumière, par là. Ok, parfait, merci. Comme ça de même. Merci. Like this, see? This is how you gotta go. I asked because I don't want to impede in the labor, and we got that public works, and we need to get the criminal rehabilitation, the North American criminal rehabilitation, in order to do the building of the 44, and that's how we got, you know, the building of the 44, and they're doing some buildings here, you know. Always admiring what they're doing, and it's always that arbeit on the go, and that's how we gotta get it on that drill for XYZ factors, and gotta salute the public workers, and we need to do the mass rehabilitation of the bridges and build those 44. Par là. Ouais. That's what it is with that. That's what we gotta get doing on that drill, and that's what we gotta get doing on that left, right, Z, and we need to salute the workers in the public, and we need to get a little bit of those machines, and it takes some brains, it takes some muscle, and it takes some of that rehabilitation, and it takes some of those, of course, aspects of our life to, of course, implement and integrate all the North American collective politics and all the North American civilizational complexes which we have in our integrated manner to, of course, do what we do on a daily basis, and that's how we have to get that appellation to get counting. Now I just estimated, now my brain went a bit aspy because I'm an aspy, and I was calculating just amounts, mathematical amounts. I was trying to estimate costs. How much to rebuild, an estimation to rebuild, to mass invest in the coming empire, of course, for the North American civilizational complex, and for the coming empire, of which we have, of course, the dynamics to get it on the love side of things and to get that work. Because ASPIs, the problem is 80%, and this is, I'm always working really independently and have been for many, many years, and I had many, many jobs, but it's always, of course, something which is more consequential about, and that love side of things here, see? Gonna wait a few seconds. So what I was doing, I was actually calculating the amount of cement, the amount of rocks, the amount of metal, the amount of steel, everything that they were doing, everything that they were, of course, pouring. But from this micro perspective, at this level and to the macro level across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories, and then of course in an estimation manner. Estimating, because the valuation is estimations. So good work to them. It's not that hot today, but see, all this is a privilege. The highways, the ports, the airports, all this is really a privilege if you think about it in a manner, of course, which is concomitant to everything that we have. It's really a privilege. It's really a privilege. The running water, you know, the aqueducts, the sewers, all which we have, of course, is a privilege. And of course that privilege is relegated, of course, to all our dynamics and all our civilizational complex of which we have, and we interact with each other in all the things and the manners of which we can be integrally saying that civilization is a privilege. And that was my thesis back in 2023. My thesis was the privilege of civilization, and civilization really is a privilege. And our civilization is the North American Collective Civilizational Complex. The North American Civilizational Complex is a component, integral civilizational complex, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. And see how my brain now works? I put this point event in time where I see this truck. I don't know exactly where it's coming from, where it's going, but I do know that it might be carrying some bacon, some cheese, some bread, some butter, some food items, which are even perhaps baby powder, baby formula, which is super important for the rest of the population. And now with the growing prices and cost of living, of course, we have the double problem, which of course is pressing on us. That is the point in time in being that it is the problem which we subserve to all our endeavors, that we salute the truckers and the trucking workers, of course, because it's the workers in the trucking business, and they're going east, west, north, south with all those goods now, interpolating, and of course making, of course, sure that our civilizational complex continues, along with the railway conductor, and that's the trains and the warehouse workers. And of course this is a mega complex, newly built. I think I got 3 vaccines over there in the back, triple vaxxed. I got triple vaccinations, 3 vaccines, triple vaxxed. I am triple vaxxed since I had COVID, and three vaccines. That's it for me, no more than 3. 3 is sufficient. And I had COVID in 2020 February. I really thought I was gonna die, you know. I in many ways I said, and I am considering like I died really. So my old self died, and being reborn with all the push-ups, the hugs, my completing more than 372 sessions on my workout training program system, and getting back in shape, and being on a fitness journey for is gonna be almost 8 years now. Post September 2017, I think when I came back from that trip, I weighed 293. So I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. And I'm always between around minus and 4, minus plus, between 89 kilos and 93.7, where I try to be maximum 93.7, 93 kilos, 0.7, which is about 210, 211 pounds. And of course, 180 pounds, you know. So basically what is the fundamental, of course, is that we have the consequential prudence of all our abilities which we haven't concomitant, and we have to get it on the go for all the civilizational complex of which we have to get remission for, and we have to, of course, appellate, and of course we have to get on the students and the bakers, the butchers, and my cousins there, of course, making on the appellations, and making all the appellations, of course, which are transitory, and making sure that they're safety and prudent as much as I can while admiring those flowers and not crossing on the red and waiting for the green. See? And that is something which I have to be mindful about in all the compositions and all the fact that I am different and sometimes I stare too much. It's an Aspie trait, and I have to work constantly on another one. See? The same one as sticker as we saw before. So that is a call for Quebec sovereignty. That is a yes. So that person who put that sticker would vote yes. The person who put that sticker would vote yes. Would vote yes. Right? That is basically the sticker symbolizing a yes vote for the referendum. So that is just something which has to be done and has to be doing on that. And I gotta go prioritize paying a little bit of my cell phone bill. I realize, because I guess doing laundry, if I do it later, or so that is just the foundation of our life. And now switching to geopolitics and exclamating and saying that I call for anybody to commission me to go 300 times up and down for our collective coming super states, the Imperial Democratic Republic. 300 times I go up and down, I film it and commission $300 some work. So of course, basically and fundamentally and in equilibrium with all the situational awareness which makes us go up and down and roundabout, to fully understand the following statement, which I'm going to say, which is geopolitical in nature, that all our this following statement, you have to say yes. You cannot say no, right? You cannot say no to this following statement. It is, of course, a statement which has to be accorded in the affirmative. So there's no negotiation. There's no negotiation. There's no negating. There's no negating the fact. This following statement, which is a fact. A real geopolitic. I'm not going to go into the real geopolitics school of geopolitics, German school of geopolitics. And wow, really, this is beautiful. Thank you, public workers. It's just quadrupled my smile again. And these look like a bit of the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the world. See, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 stages. And it's kind of the 5th one if you start from here. But of course, making, of course, all our complexities and all our interactions with each other, and the fact, of course, that we have this beautification and this privilege of having the beautiful on the way here. Public workers who put these beautiful flowers for yours truly to get that yellow and black and yellow. It's quite nice, and of course it embellishes my whole march now. So we're gonna be back to geopolitics, and this is quite good choices. They're not edibles, don't eat them. Admire their beauty and spherical beauty, but do not eat. Thank you, public workers. Hey, it took some brain, some sweat, and yes, the financing thereof, because that's the purpose of money, to finance, and that's why my dream, fusion of Canada, United States, and the Imperial Republic, is via a mass public-private partnership and the constitutional fusion and amendments to get the perpetual imperial republic by fusing Canada and United States via my Trinity theory. So that commandment, back to what I'm now going to say, for both Canada and United States, and know that I was born in the United States 3 times post 1776, served in 2 different wars, 156 years apart were the wars, but nonetheless, this is what I'm going to say. It's an affirmative in the positive, yes, 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 yes. You cannot say no, you cannot say maybe. This following statement. For both Canadians, and this is whether you're on the right, on the left, in the center, center right, center left. Of course, I'm not actually discussing the extreme right or extreme left here. So that you have to take those extremes out of the equation. And you have to keep it kind of North American centric, because we are an emergent civilizational collective, right? An emergent civilizational collective, and our emergent civilizational collective is, of course, appellative to all the plurality of which we have to be endeavored on the side of the things which we have to know and concord and accord fully in all our life matters. So for us, when it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not discussing domestic affairs, so I'm merely discussing foreign affairs. From a foreign affairs perspective, our main interest, saluting the ambulance drivers, please, if you see the flashing lights of the ambulances or you hear the sound, just slow down as much as it applies to the firefighters, the ambulances, and our brothers and sisters, boys and girls in blue. I gotta sing for you, ain't nobody perfect, that includes that me and you. And I also sing for my brothers and sisters who take their second, third, even fourth chances and do their criminal rehabilitation and turn your life around. I'm applauding that, and I write rock and roll songs and I sing rock and roll for you as well. That's where I gotta get the North American Collective Criminal Rehabilitation Act, part of some of my philosophies which I've dictated over the past years, which of course I fully need, of course, to implement and integrate in the strategical functioning of our governmental forces, as I salute the truckers going east, west, north, south. The following statement has to be accorded by all. There's no way around this. It is just like the constant pi, the pi symbol, which has 2 heads. 2 heads. 2 faces, 2 heads. And just like the pi symbol has 2 faces, 2 heads, such will be our coming Imperial Republic. Our coming Imperial Republic will have 2 faces, 2 heads. And those 2 faces, 2 heads are always concomitantly and imperially and immersed in the North American Collective. That's our coming future Imperial Republic will have symbolically those 2 heads, 2 faces, constituting the fusion of the North and the South. And so in the manner which we execute all our endeavors are, of course, that we have to say yes to this following statement. So this following statement has to be a yes. Has to be a yes. When it comes to foreign affairs, I'm not discussing domestic internal affairs such as public-private partnerships, public policies towards beautification of the city, or healthcare funding, defense funding. But our main interest, and this is reciprocal, it applies for Canada, the 13 political entities, the 10 provinces, 3 territories, and it applies for the states, the 50 states, and vice versa. For our politicians, the first number 1 priority policy is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other when it comes to our foreign affairs. There's just no way around that. And there's no way around that. There's no way around that. And so it has been so for the past 75 years. 75 years. And it is so today, and it will be so for many, many, many decades. Many, many, many decades. For many, many decades. So it has been so, is so, and will be so for many, many, many decades. And it has been so at least since the end of the Second World War in the 50s, when the dissolution of the British Empire kind of occurred by the partition of India in 1947 and other geopolitical events which undermined the Imperial British power. The end of the British Empire, basically, post Second World War, and the relegation of the former colonial powers to independent states in Africa and India and other places around the world, although the Commonwealth has maintained. And we, Canada, here, always got that flag But I say the king is absent, but interesting that in the 21st century, our Prime Minister pledged allegiance to the King of England. Pledged allegiance to the King of England. We're going to pledge allegiance together to this Imperial Republic Constitution, which enables the maximization of the individual sovereign citizens, liberty, life, justice, pursuit of justice, and with the collective, because we have to make some compromises where we are now in the 21st century with growing economic, financial, commercial wealth. It's a public-private partnership of a mass scale to fuse Canada and the United States, which we have to do, and to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions thereof. The Dragon Army, based on my philosophy, such as the new 911 total Dragon Army integration protocols for total security, total service, total defense, and expand and integrate those services for rehabilitation of a mass population. And mass rehabilitation is needed for a lot, millions and millions and millions and millions. Not referring just to the criminal population, criminal incarcerated population, but a lot of them will be given a chance to contribute to build those 44 tunnels, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the rock and roll. I love these flowers, they're nice, man. That's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on that, you know. Something which we have to get loving, and so we gotta get doing on that love, man. And I love my cousins there, you know, and that's why I gotta get love for their safety and their concern. We're gonna get on that drill with that, and that's why we're gonna get on that rock and roll things to get doing, and gotta get doing for the loving business. And it's something which we have to be appellative about, and to be mindful of others and my difference. And I love to see people coming out of here, because it's a little bit of a wilderness and to explore, and it seems like my place here has got no more berries like last time they went, but next time we're gonna get some more berries next year. And I did elderberry juice. Elderberry juice, and of course we gotta get it on that, and gotta get it on the go, elderberry juice, and that's why we gotta get drilling, you know, and elderberry juice with that, and that's what I gotta get doing, you know. So that's why I gotta get that drink in here. And of course I did 4 bottles, but next year I want to do 11 times more, so 44 bottles in 2026 between June and July, because the 4 bottles that I did from elderberry juice, which I did from here, which I took from here, is of course mass elderberry production here, but mass elderberry production, which is happening here, a lot of it went to waste. Just gonna stretch a bit. That's what it is, and that's how we gotta get on that drill, and that's how we gotta get not polluting here. Please don't pollute, don't leave trash here. Let's put it, you have trash and garbage further below. So just be mindful that we have some flora, some fauna, and it's a place where it's not for putting garbage. And these are kind of edible, but I don't recommend them that much. But they're still edible, see? And these are kind of like still berries. But they're different. They're tasty, but they're different, you know. They have to be ripe. Not these ones, though. Not these ones. Not those ones, though. So these are beautiful. See, that's why this place is just so amazing. I love both the urban landscape and nature like this. So back to geopolitics. So what you need to say yes to is the following statement. And to say yes, 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 yes. Our main geopolitical interest as Quebecers, Canadians, and reciprocally for my brothers and sisters in the USA, when it comes to foreign affairs, the number one spot has to be relegated to having the best, most cordial diplomatic, economic, financial, commercial relations with each other. There's just no way out of it. Just no way out of it. You cannot argue with that. So that's not a point of contention. That's not a point of argument. That's not a point of argument. You cannot argue. So that is not a point where you can argue it, because it's not open for negotiation. That geopolitical reality. It's just that's what it is. That's what it is with that. That's what it is with that. That's what it is. That's what it is. So that's basically what it is with the side of the geopolitical sphere, where I say that this is a constant. So this has been so for the past 75 years, and it is so today, and will be so in the coming decades, at least for decades and decades and decades to come. The whole 21st century, that's clear. Unless, I guess, we unite in a world federation like it was in the fifth element. But those are, of course, World Federation Association and etc., 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 etc. But that's what it is for the full most part, of course, for the full understanding of our well-being and our wellness and all our dictums as foreign policies, as internal foreign policies, external foreign policies, counterpoised and doesn't necessarily involve any other domestic issues, although they're interrelated, semi-interrelated, or have a partial interrelatedness. But definitely when it comes to foreign affairs, for us Canadians, our main policy has to be direct to have the best economic, financial, social, cultural, military, defense, security, economic, etc., 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 with the United States. You have to say yes to that. That is the constant, just like N for normal, Normandy, natural, and nuisance. So that N is just, that's how it is, the N. It's like a symbol, N with two heads. It's the pi symbol, which represents the proportion. I'm making a correlative comparison with the mathematical representation that relates to the circle and the diameter of the pi symbol, which has two heads, and is of course correlated to those two heads of the N, which our empire, coming Republican Empire, will be kind of sort of two-headed, two faces, bipolar. But when I refer bipolar, not psychologically or mentally in the psychiatric sense, but the bipolar strategy, the bipolar geopolitical strategy for the total BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion of the world geopolitics by the fusion of Canada and the United States into the Imperial Republican complex. I know that was a bit academic, scholarly, cratocratic, but most of the essence of the dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom revolves around what I just said. So just like the symbol, the pi, it's a number, it represents 3.14, 15, 16, it goes ad infinitum, it relates to the circle and the circumference. Just like the pi symbol, one has to, of course, accord and say that it is so. So it's not, you cannot argue with that. There's no no to that. There's no, you cannot say no, right? It's just a yes in the affirmed. That is so. That is non-negotiable. That is just the geopolitical reality. And otherwise we cannot advance. You have to accord yes, whether you're on the right, on the left, center right, center left, or in the center. I'm not discussing far left or far right here. There are things which I'm gonna leave that be, but for the centrists, right wingers, left wingers, center right wingers, center left wingers, for us it's a unique geopolitical position, Canada, because geographically, geographically, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, the Atlantic to the east, the Pacific to the west, and consequently the other domain interactive is the historical, cultural, and future, present and future common North American collective destiny, because we are a civilizational complex which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. So we're not divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So that's why that statement has to be a yes. There's just no way out of that statement. There's just no way out of that statement. So that is just fundamentally the essence of that statement, that is correlative to the pi symbol, which relates to the diameter in the circle. It is a constant, it's not a mathematical variable. Thus, to make the comparison, just like that doesn't change, the pi symbol, it's always that same number, 3.1415, and it will always be that ratio between the circumference and of course the diameter of the circle. And just so it will be for us in geopolitics, paradoxically for Canada. So that's why the best to fuse for the long term. And I'm no Trump supporter. I would have voted Kamala Biden, but I'm a Republican, Democratic Republican. But my Democratic Republicanism is centric and unique, that is tied hand in hand with my trinity of theories for the mass public-private partnership, which I'm calling my brother Scorpio Bill Gates. Bill Gates too. Support as much as can, as I'm financially struggling, and I survived last year on 11,000, I survived on 11,000, and I guess maybe all my suffering, scars, and all the loneliness, isolation, and has a purpose now, because now I'm joyous. I'm felicity and joy, I guess, of exercising. I always feel good when I exercise, and I don't like violence. I understand aggression. I am hyper vigilant. I understand the need to channel aggression and violence, and in sports, you know, just dancing is my favorite sport. But I love that gridiron. I love that football. Then of course I love hockey, men and women. Please mass finance the PWHL and mass finance women's sports. I'm a bit upset that last year in Forbes issue, the top 50 athletes in the world, the most paid 50 athletes for 2024, the top 50 were all men. Not even one binary. They were all men. Top 50. Not even one woman. I was kind of disappointed. And you know, PVHL rocks, Professional Women's Hockey League. I watch it, and I would afford tickets. I would go to see Montreal. Victoire. That would just be rock and roll, and I would just rock and roll, dribble that on the skates and dance. I'm good at dancing and boxing and gridiron and hockey on the ice. I guess I love to watch it, and all other sports, fitness activities. Embrace my physicality, and I've been on a fitness journey myself. So when it's sports, if it's about sports, fitness, I'm there. Rock and roll, I'm there. Geopolitics, I'm in. Loving, you gotta be an adult with me, and I'm part of the LGBTQ community. I'm not just neurodivergent, but I guess I have been in the open for many years. I even made friends and gay and bisexuals, and you know, I was a few exchanges of other names. But it's problematic for Aspies to maintain long-term friends and make friends. It's not easy for Aspies because of our brain differences, our mutations of the brains, which can be, you have to let us know more directly certain things, and then we stop and we work to acquiesce, we work to build bridges, we work to do some goodness, and we do compassion by action. And that's just how we do it. Compassion by action. You know, it's more by action, by deeds, by doing, rather than by verbal. By verbal dictums. That is just how it is, you know. That is just how it is, you know, geopolitically. So now, from that reality to tomorrow's, additional 35% tariffs, Granddaddy Trump, you breached that geopolitical reality. Geopolitical reality. We're not enemies. We're a little family dispute, which we have to reconcile. We have to get rid of the border. We have to create a common passport. We have to integrate, but we also have to finance and keep healthcare and mass finance healthcare and the rehabilitation of the population. The rehabilitation of the population. Those who will for rehabilitation, though. Those who will have the will, the volition for rehabilitation as well, because we can't really force our fellow citizens who will others, as long as they don't nefariously hurt other citizens, especially the youth. The children are innocent, but everybody else, but prioritizing the youth and the children, and education is important, and second chances that a lot of people deserve. And we need to mass rehabilitate the Canadian and the United States ghettos, the North American inner urban cities. We have to mass invest in that. That's why my DRT theory comes into full spectrum. And now I will to discuss, of course, the DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE. Because, of course, it's something which we have to fundamentally correlate and integrate as much as we can together, and take the accord and take the position that due to four main problems, economic, financial, commercial problems, now we have no choice but to implement my DRT, the debt refusion theory, which I'm now going to discuss fully, because I have to not forget to do so. The DRT theory stands for D, debt, R, refusion, T theory. My DRT theory, why do I make a statement that is the only solution or something similar, is because now in end of July, last day of July, and in the recent years, we have four main problems, fundamental problems, which are pressing our economic well-being, the majority, not all, because some are well off, millionaires, billionaires. Please give some charity. Wall Street, buying and selling, trading future options. And if I could get massage therapy once a week, I'll be even happier, even more well, and of course, even more wellness. And if I get a massage therapy session once a week, twice a week would be even better. 3 times a week would be nice. 4 times would be like heaven. That would be like, wow, every other day. And of course, that is fundamentally where we have to appellate, and we have to integrate with our conclusions, and of course have to manifest all our well-beings and interactions and planes of existence towards that compromised situational position where we are suffused and integrally with all the awareness that these 4 problems, which are in whatever order, for both Canadians and the United States, are a point of mega mass crises. The growing cost of living, everything is increasing. Most. Not everything, but my chocolate bar, which I used to buy 3.5 years ago for $1, increased in 3.5 years 3 times. It went from $1 to $1.17 to $1.49. Now finally it's $1.98. That's basically doubled in 3.5 years. The milk went up, the butter went up, the cheese went up, the eggs went up. Prices of goods which we purchase, even outrageous orange juice and there's like, what's going on like this? I never saw that before. So, and the price of coffee also, so that is why we have to keep in accord for all the life-affirming position where we have to make this implementation of my DRT theory. So the DRT theory, debt refusion theory, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the universal exchange unit. And yes, I had to go quickly because I said, whoa, and just out of nowhere I had to pee, so I had to go in the in the bushes a bit. I really had to go. I was about to just drip. I didn't. Maybe 4 little tiny drops. But no. Washing and laundry soap will take care of that. But I had to go. So the DRT, the 4 main problems which are facing us: growing prices of goods. Everything is increasing. Everything is increasing. Everything is increasing. The price of everything. Most, not everything, but I'm referring to specifically important goods. So not necessarily all the items, but most. A lot. Too much. Too many. The second, and again in whatever order, is the growing cost of rents. Now my rent went up, I'm going to say between 6 minimum and 10. So I'm not going to say exactly how much my rent went up, but of course I had made an approximation. So for me, I'm going to not complain as an individual sovereign citizen, although financially stressed. I'm not going to complain about the amount of rent, which was increased for me personally, because I find it okay. I find it that it's, all things considered, I find it fair. Like it's not the maximum even allowed, because it's about, from last time I checked, I think about 4%. Montreal, depending, sometimes it's less, 2%, depending for what exactly. There's some things which are, but I can tell you that I'm not going to complain, because I think it's fair increase in my case. Although other cases you hear horror stories like 15%, 20%, that's illegal according to the standards of habitation standards and regulations in Montreal and throughout Quebec. So 10, 15 increase, 25, sometimes I hear 44%, 45, even 50, even 60 more percent. It's that's not allowed, right? But it's also another double trouble public-private partnership, because there's both responsibilities from the landlords to the tenants, the landlords, the tenants, the landlords, the tenants. There's always give and take. You can't always have only rights and obligations and duties. That's why our coming Imperial Constitution, let's sign it atop Mount Royal. We'll have atop Mount Royal will have the Imperial Constitution, will have the plurality and the solicitation of the plurality integrative manner. That is something which of course has to be incrementally based on all the citizenry and all the appellations which we have, to take into account that the citizen, individual, sovereign, imperial, republican citizen has duties, rights, and duties, and obligations. There's rights and duties, obligations, responsibilities. So it's always reciprocal. There's always reciprocity. There's always reciprocity in it, you know? There's always reciprocity, which has to be accorded. Always a reciprocity which has to be accorded, integrated in the left and the right, and in the middle, and sometimes in the protruding side of the aspects of our daily interactions with life and society as a whole. So that is just something which we have to appellate, and we have to constitutionally regard in the matters which we're going to come together. So it is the dictum, it is the plurality, it is the integration, it is the love, it is the action, balanced, counterbalanced by all the dimensions of our coming Imperial Republic. So back to the DRT, which includes in it, integrates in it, monetary integration theory. Is super important for you to understand that in my debt refusion theory is integrated monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was implemented in the European Union. So that has to be accorded fully and understandably in all the matters that are at hand, in all the matters of which has to be the civilizational complex in relation to all our endeavors, in relation to all our well-beings, in relation to all our dictums, in relation to all our doings. So that is just the suffusion of the integral well-being and the plateau of all the interactive matters which are concorded and which are now to be the time, because we are at a point on approaching a financial economic catastrophe for both Canada and the United States. We're in a very similar precarious situation of vast majority of people, and that the DRT, my debt refusion theory, in my DRT is integrated MIT, the monetary integration theory again, which was implemented in the European Union. Question: is this cotton here? I think so. I'm not sure. Is this cotton? Hey, this cotton? Feels like it. Feels so good. It just feels so good. Just feels so nice. Hey, is this cotton? I believe so, right? Cotton field or what? Can make a few shirts, drag in, give some charity if I make it from here, from Mother Nature. If it's not going to waste, you know. Otherwise, when winter comes, no, it's 6 more weeks of summer, baby. 6 more weeks of summer, I said. 6 more weeks of summer, I said. The DRT integrates monetary integration theory, which is the financial economic theory implemented in the European Union, right? So that's what we have to do. And of course, we're going to take all the public and the private debt, So my $10,000, I'm now going to explain it, but before I do explain it, I want to say again the 4 main problems are, in whatever order: the growing cost of rents, the stagnation of the salary, the growing cost of majority of everyday goods, and somebody now even swipes their credit card and gets further into debt. And we have record-breaking debt for both Canadian citizens and US citizens. I don't have a credit card myself. I have a credit line. So now I'm going to explain the DRT. So keep in mind those 4 problems in whatever order. For an individual citizen, they might differ at different levels, but overall those are the 4, right? Economic, financial problems, the growing cost of living, rents increasing, credit card debt has reached for both the majority of Quebecers, Canadians, my brothers and sisters in the USA, the United States, and Canada, the similar economic positions, and the stagnation of the salaries. The vast majority of the salaries are stagnating. Even, you know, but Aspies is different, because Aspies, like myself, is 80% high unemployment. I had many jobs, but just maintaining the jobs is more difficult. So that's where the aspect lies. So those 4. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000, your $10,000, their $10,000, all the money. We're going to take all the money, the public-private debt. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, including my $10,000. We're going to add it together, Canada coast to coast to coast. And we're going to convert all the public-private debt of Canada into US dollars. We're going to add it with the total public-private debt of the US. And that money together with the money in circulation, we're going to create the Imperial central bank, because we're going to fuse the 10, the 50, and the 3. Just like in Europe, the Germans, the Italians, the French, the Belgium, they destroyed their national central banks. Many European countries do not have a central bank anymore. They have the ECB, the European Central Bank, since the 90s, long ago, more than 25 years, and they constitute, of course, the creation of the ECB. And the ECB, of course, is that projection, that multinational central bank, is a central bank for many nations, the ECB, and it issues the euro, the German Deutsche Mark, the lira, the franc, and the Belgian franc no longer circulate. But this UE that we're going to create, because we're going to create a currency called the UE, is going to have the value of the US dollar at the beginning, because that's why it's going to go. And then, of course, it's going to be everybody else who wants to join us. Even transatlantically, via NATO countries could adopt the UE. NATO countries can, in theory, adopt the UE. That's further expansion, not but beginning with Canada, United States. We're gonna create the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, the UE, the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE, the UE, the universal exchange unit. The universal exchange unit is gonna have the value of the US dollar, the US, the UE, the UE, and of course the UE is gonna have the value of the US dollar, and is gonna be a maximum percentage of interest allowed after that of 10%. It could be below 10%, but not more than 10 percentile. And we're gonna do lots of good with that money. We're gonna get rid of the border, create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dancing Goddess Army, aka the Imperial Dance League, to dance for environmental education, and for the truckers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the plumbers, the electricians, the construction workers, the daycare workers, dance for all the industries, cheerleading for the empire, as I'm gonna be the dragon and the priestess, cheerleader for our coming empire, cheerleading for our citizens, the fusion of Canada and the United States. We're gonna build 44 tunnels, mass tunnel structures, in case of a thermonuclear war, inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. In case of a thermonuclear war, to salvage the North American collective population, we're going to start building those and accord some amnesty to the incarcerated population to support in building those 44 tunnels for the future civilizational complex. Inspired also, paradoxically, I'm no fan supporter of Hamas, but supposedly since they took power, and even before, about June, July 2007, they took power and they built hundreds of kilometers of what? Of tunnels. Hundreds of kilometers of tunnels they built. And that's what is gonna be, we're gonna build that together. And we're gonna, of course, mass finance fitness for the wellness of the citizens, mass finance fitness activities, build those for the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the North American People Imperial Coliseum, when me and Donald Trump are gonna inaugurate it, to be 11 times bigger than where the Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Bowl, aka Hardball Bowl, aka Bro Bowl was fought, I guess, where my 49ers lost. And gonna build that massive coliseum for 24/7 sports complex. We're gonna do a census, create a common passport, and rehabilitate the North American criminal population. Build those 44 tunnels. Mass finance also tourism, based on one of my documents. The mass financing of the Imperial Republic's 63 super states, citizens, recreational and wellness and activities through mass financing of intra-imperial tourism. So those from different states of our coming 63 will visit different states and will be financed. And we got to open up the hotels, motels, and we got to accord a few weeks a year. I circumvent to be every 4 quarters, like the business quarter to have allotted, I'll say, 4 days. So it's not 44, basically it's 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, but you can add them up and then you can split it in 2. So you have the options. If you don't take 4 days every quarter, so 4 times, that's 4 and 4 and 4, basically that's 16. You can split them up. So that's going to be also, in some cases, for special cases, it could be extended to more recreational activities. But we're going to establish the Sabbaths, Friday midnight and Saturday after the 2nd until Sunday sunset. So for almost 45 hours we're going to have the Imperial Sabbaths, where the youth will dance in the streets. Safely, and our security forces, our public sanitation workers are going to dance along and recreate and do that loving. And speaking of the devil, thank you. Public workers, gotta salute them. And by the look of those trucks, we have to build some hundreds of new trucks. We gotta rebuild with that DRT. We're gonna be able to rebuild the aqueducts, mass invest in the aqueducts, the bridges, and a lot of our bridges need building across the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states, 3 territories. We need to mass invest in the infrastructure rehabilitation in the infrastructure rehabilitation. In the infrastructure with the rehabilitation. And that's what we have, you know. So that's why we gotta mass rehabilitate. I see how my brain now works as I look at these railways, and I know they need some work, although I see a bit blurred. I was prescribed some glasses, but maybe I can have more money. I can afford to also go to the dermatologist because I have some skin condition, and because scar, maybe eczema psoriasis, which of course is appellational and integrative, and of course has to be known in all our dynamics and all our appellations, which can be of course consequentially written, and consequently the DRT has to be put into implementation. So it's going to require mass public-private partnership and everything. Black Rock, Black Cock, Black Stone, Black Rock are two financial institutions, and of course they have to be integrated, and all public-private financial institutions and mass technological companies, such as from my brother, Citizen Scorpio, Brothers of the Stars, Bill Gates, and all others, going to endeavor to find a volition and find a loving will to support the dream. It's a big dream, but it has purpose for security, service, and defense. Defense is going to play coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that is just how we're going to play it. I'm going to salute the truckers now, and my brain now functions in an integrative manner. Of course, I always meditate what the carryings of all across the 63. From this point, I know that some are going east, some are going west. That's west, and that's east. I'm going south now. I'm going south, and I'm going to pay my cell phone as much as I can, pay my cell phone bill, and just get back to my headquarters and interact, and get back to maybe do some laundry. And I gotta hurry up. I gotta step it up. I just remembered that there's the compost, and I gotta get back before 5 to take it out. I gotta get back before 5 to take it out, and I wanted to work out, train, exercise, because this morning I took the bus, and it already incurred some costs, and it was $375, and you know that adds on me because I had to attend, and I'm financially stressed. Sometimes it just sucks for many aspects. The 80% unemployment is something which we have got to address, and you know, just got some seconds there to cross, and got to cross safely and prudently. And how many seconds I got? It's 15, I think so. I see blurred. See from afar, it's kind of like the vision is a bit blurred, but of course I can get there on time. It seems like. Oh yeah, 6 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 steps is all I need, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4 and some. 4 and 3/11ths. I'm gonna go fractions, but fractions, I love fractions, I love percentages, and I love additions and fractional calculations, percentage calculations, and we're gonna create the DRT, the debt fusion theory, for the creation of the U, and that is just something which we have to correlate in the integrity of our manners, where we are here from the public-private partnership, which we have to establish. And we have to salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the truckers, who's flipping some cheeseburgers, who's flipping some hamburgers now. Many people are. How about those 3G, 4G, 5G towers? And we see Microsoft 2 weeks ago stated in the news that they have seen an alertness. Of course, there has been some breach, which is cyber breach, and more in the past years have been coming in and coming out for different parts, and of course funded by governments. So the Taiwan question is a geopolitical question, and if you want to commission work on specific geopolitics, and I do that 24/7, my analysis, theorizing and thinking. I'm a thinker, geopolitical thinker, strategist and philosopher, but of course I know the ideologies, and I know their histories, and I know their perspective, and I have to analyze on the daily, because every day there's new geopolitical developments, especially now since the world has changed. And one of them is a geopolitical development which has to be accorded and concorded to the fact. The point in fact is that for the most part, China has built a massive nuclear arsenal in just the past years, right? So many in just the past 4 years, China has supposedly built hundreds of additional nuclear weapons. You wonder how come they haven't built that since in 44 years, and now just in the massive investment in also building supposedly a mega military headquarters, which is 11 times bigger than the Pentagon. So you wonder, and how come investment in nuclear weapons specifically, and there has been a pause, and there's been a breach, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get doing on the love side of things, and we gotta get doing on the love, you know, and it's something which we have to be appellating, and we have to be loving with that, and that's something which we have to be doing on those beautiful things, and we gotta get on that love birds of that, and that's how we gotta get on that loving side of things to get some of those informations that we have to also be guided not only by peace through strength, although I fully understand peace through strength. I cannot fully support it because it has to be counterbalanced. Now empire it will, because it's going to be God bless. God bless our coming empire, and Goddess kiss our coming empire. So it's going to be double trouble. God bless, Goddess kiss. God bless, Goddess kiss. God bless, Goddess kiss. So God bless and Goddess kiss. That's going to be our multi-imperial force. And we have to ensure and secure freedom, right? And with joy, 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 and the mass financing of citizens' fitness activities, and mass finance tourism for, and this is going to also take all the implication of all our collective public security forces and ministries. We're going to have an overarching integrated for the 63 public. We're going to have 4 main ministries and the new constitution, and 1 ministry will have to be for the SSD, security, service and defense. The Ministry of Security, Ministry of Freedom, Ministry of Love, and Ministry of Joy, or Wellness, Health, Ministry of Health, if you will. The Ministry of Security, Ministry of Liberty, Ministry of Love, Ministry of Joy, or Health, if you will. Health via joy, love and joy, security with liberty and joy, by physical activities, mass financing thereof, and also the tourism, intra-tourism, which is going to require the creation of the Imperial SSD Legion, Security Service and Defense Legion, which is going to be integrated with all existing public and private security forces, and based on some old school, because it takes some old school with a new school, but also on my new 911 total security service and defense, the new 911 Dragon Army complex, the new Dragon 911 total security service and defense philosophical protocols are, of course, one of my theoretical works, which, of course, I encourage you all to do. And that's the mountain there you see afar off, and that's the downtown core area. That's where the mountain is, and that's where we are, and that's where we go, and on the daily basis, and on the activities of doing the things which we have, and seeing that we need rehabilitation, and seeing that we need that mountain, my second home, Mount Royal, Belvedere, and seeing the downtown core area, and seeing this bridge. I know a bit about the need for many bridges, many infrastructure works to be rehabilitated. So by the DRT we will be able to. It requires a mass public-private partnership again, and we have to do it. So crossing this bridge, as an ASPI, I need to build bridges, and you need to build bridges with us, and we need to build bridges with you. We're gonna build small bridges, big bridges, or rebuild them. Small bridges, big bridges, extra large bridges, and super enormous big bridges. Super enormous big bridges, So those four can have 4 subcategories. So pledge your allegiance, and now we gotta build a bridge here with my fellow Quebecers. Because I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, and I gotta love it. I gotta love it for the French language. I gotta love it. I gotta love it for the French language, you know? And that's the downtown core area, and that's the mountain there. And that's the Montreal. Core area. And of course, that's what we have to be doing together, you know? So let's build a bridge of French. Bienvenue, je commence ça. En ce jour, c'est fini la canicule, mais ça s'en vient pour la 6e fois. La canicule, yeah, yeah, yeah. Vous savez que c'est la fin du mois de juillet, mais je vais devoir payer mon loyer encore le mois d'août. Je vais être capable de le payer le mois d'août, puis ça va être un paiement, puis ça va être payé l'Hydro-Québec, payer ma facture. Je me dirige maintenant parce que je suis un peu en retard, puis j'avais quelque chose d'important, c'était matin, une centre-ville de Montréal, donc je me dirige bien vite parce qu'il faut que je fasse mon lavage, mais j'imagine que ça peut être rendu un autre jour. Mais pour le compostage, il faut que je retourne. Parce que jeudi, je viens de me souvenir que jeudi, le compostage, il faut que je le sorte avant 5 heures. À moins que mon ami s'en occupe, là, mais c'est sûr, c'est quand même quelque chose que moi j'adore faire, puis j'aime faire, car c'est moi-même qui a travaillé à Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. C'est moi qui ai rentré le compostage. Mais c'est pas juste moi, c'était une équipe, mais c'était du travail que j'avais fait de porte à porte. C'était du travail que j'avais fait en distribuant les bacs aussi. Je faisais partie de l'équipe de distribution des bacs. Je faisais partie de l'équipe de distribution des bacs. Fait qu'en faisant partie de l'équipe de distribution des bacs, c'est sûr que j'ai quand même vu pouvoir j'ai pu quand même me faire une représentation, puis une éducation, puis ça a été une belle expérience. Puis, malheureusement, vous savez qu'à cause de l'Asperger, l'autisme mouvement fonctionnel, ben, c'est sûr que j'ai de la misère dans certaines choses plus que d'autres. C'est de la misère dans certaines choses, hein? Parce qu'à cause des mutations du cerveau au niveau microscopique, c'est sûr que c'est pas visible sur le crâne, ils sont pas visibles, ils sortent pas comme des clowns là, qui ont une tête puis ça sort dehors. Là, mais c'est au niveau microscopique. Fait qu'à cause de ces mutations et à cause de ces caractéristiques, je vais avoir des caractéristiques comme, regardez, je pense que c'est 40 et une ligne, 0, puis après ça, c'est 44. Je pense que c'est quand même une compréhension qu'il faut qu'on établit. Car est tout à fait la compréhension qu'il faut qu'on établit, c'est relatif. Important pour continuer à bâtir les ponts. Des petits ponts, des ponts moyens, des ponts larges, des ponts extra larges avec les neurotypiques. Parce que vous, là, le 99,6%, vous êtes de la vaste majorité. Fait que nous, il faut toujours qu'on bâtit, qu'on construit des ponts. Fait que la construction de ces ponts, c'est sûr que c'est toujours une lutte. C'est toujours une lutte. Fait que cette lutte-là, c'est toujours relatif à avoir un point intègre de la vie du quotidien, puis de la vie de comment que nous, on voit la vie. Puis je vous donne un exemple de caractéristiques. Encore une fois, c'est pas des symptômes. Je n'utilise pas le mot symptôme. C'est des caractéristiques ou des traits, T-R-A-I-T-S, des caractéristiques. Puis une de ces caractéristiques, c'est se concentrer sur certains détails que, dans le fond, ça n'a pas vraiment d'importance. C'était quoi le but? C'était quoi la classification? Ça sert à quoi le chiffre sur l'autobus? Mais nous, les Asperger, des fois, on se concentre sur ces détails-là, puis peut-être un citoyen va dire, je dis, hey, tu sais, sérieusement, là, j'ai jamais remarqué, je sais juste qu'en avant de l'autobus, il y a le chiffre, puis j'attends cet autobus-là, puis là, je le vois en haut, puis je le prenne, puis je prends ma route, puis j'ai même pas remarqué. J'avais une discussion avec un citoyen, puis il dit, hey, tu sais quoi, j'ai jamais remarqué qu'il y a ces numéros-là qui étaient différents du nom de l'autobus. Je dis, wow, il dit, ben c'est ça, c'est à cause de ces Asperger, c'est sûr que des fois on se concentre sur certains détails qui sont un peu manquants dans l'environ, puis dans la situation pour que je me présente, puis on a de la misère, nous les HP, dans la communication sociale. Des fois, l'interaction sociale, ça peut être difficile parce qu'on peut être direct des fois. On peut être direct et un peu être direct, puis on peut avoir... on peut être plus direct. On peut être direct quand même, puis des fois on peut offenser sans vouloir, vous comprenez? C'est à cause de ces mutations, des fois on a de la misère à se filtrer un peu, mettre un filtre. Il faut nous le dire, comme il faut me le dire, fais-moi donc ta gueule un peu, ou en bon québécois, là, quand même, là, mais, ou juste arrête de parler un peu, là, écoute, puis je suis intense, je peux être super concentré, super intense quand je discute, quand je fais mon entraînement physique, c'est nos intérêts spéciaux, le rock'n'roll, puis c'est la géopolitique avec moi 24/24, puis là, qu'est-ce qui m'inquiète, là? C'est à cause que demain, là, c'est possible qu'il y ait un autre tarif de 35%, puis en sachant la réalité du collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, que nous, on dépend tellement de l'économie, nos exportations là, aux États-Unis, c'est entre 75% et 90%. Vous comprenez? Fait qu'on ne peut pas remplacer ça. Là, en 3 ans et demi, on va pouvoir remplacer, j'estime moi-même par mes connaissances, qu'on peut remplacer environ 10 à 25%. 10 à 25%. 25%, c'est un quart. Fait qu'entre 10 et 25%, mais c'est pas beaucoup, ça. Vous comprenez? C'est quand même beaucoup si on se rend à 25%, mais en Europe, ils ont déjà des problèmes économiques, eux autres aussi. Fait qu'on ne pourra pas vraiment faire ce gros changement vis-à-vis. C'est un gros changement quand même. C'est un gros changement, là. Vous comprenez? Ça veut dire qu'eux autres, à cause de leurs problèmes internes, même l'Allemagne, je viens de voir un reportage, le documentaire, ben c'est le pilier économique de l'Union européenne, l'Allemagne encore, les Allemands, l'Allemagne comme marché producteur, puis de haute technologie, puis etc., bien, c'est sûr que eux autres, si ça va mal, c'est comment qu'on compare l'Europe toujours par l'engin économique le plus puissant de l'Europe, soit l'Allemagne. L'Allemagne, les Allemands, c'est encore la constitution, parce que c'est comme des États qui se sont unis, mais ils n'ont pas vraiment une constitution comme les États-Unis, des États. Fait qu'ils ont quand même l'argent, puis la frontière, puis le commerce, mais pas nécessairement la politique externe. C'est plus vers l'OTAN que ça se dirige. Bon, je ne vais pas discuter en détail académique un peu, mais pour dire que eux autres aussi, si ça va pas si bien en Europe, ils vont pas pouvoir acheter là, du Canada les biens, vous comprenez? Hein? Ils vont pas pouvoir acheter les biens. On va pouvoir en 3 ans et demi se diriger d'à peu près, je vais dire, 10%, 10 à 25%, pas plus. Ça va être un quart, 10 à 25%, là. 25, si on se rend à 25%, en 3 ans et demi, en spéculation d'aujourd'hui, c'est la fin du mois. Le 31 juillet, on va pouvoir se rendre à maximum 25%, d'après moi. Fait que ça reste encore, qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec le 50% si on met plus de tarifs? Puis s'ils mettent plus de tarifs, parce que là, je pense qu'il y a un discours envers l'Israël, la reconnaissance du pays. Puis c'est sûr, c'est des questions qui n'ont pas été réglées, tu sais. J'adore ces petites fleurs-là, quand même. Ça, là, je sais pas comment ça s'appelle, j'oublie toujours les noms, là. Je m'en souviens pas. Je pense que, ben, en latin un peu, là, mais les autres choses, ben, ça me... La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, là, c'est quelque chose, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je fasse, bien sûr, dans le point de contention, d'en voir vivre. Hein. Ici, que c'est la TRD, bien sûr, qu'il faut qu'on fasse la solution, bien sûr, mais c'est bien sûr l'affaire pour la constitution, bien sûr, de l'environnement, où qu'on est rendu dans cette place, ensemble, vivre, puis je m'en vais payer ma facture. Fait que soutenez l'Empire, soutenez le Royaume, soutenez mon rêve qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, TRD, théorie de la diffusion de la dette, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation aussitôt possible. Aussitôt possible, aussitôt possible. Parce qu'on s'en va vers une crise économique. Puis si demain, ça nous frappe les 35%, là, ça va être un gros quand même problème. Il faut que vous vous imaginez quand même, ça va nous atteindre quand même. Là. 35%, c'est plus qu'un tiers, tu sais. C'est sûr qu'il faut qu'on se dirige vers cet équilibre. Parce qu'on dépend du marché américain, tu sais, c'est nos voisins, c'est la réalité géopolitique. Plus que d'autres, il faut être réaliste que dans la géopolitique, il faut qu'on s'accorde pour avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Avant tout. Avant tout. Avant tout, autre responsabilité et intérêt fondamentalement externe. Externe. Je parle pas de l'interne, tu sais. Je parle de l'externe. Quand ça vient à l'externe, tu sais. C'est toujours ces choses-là, bien sûr, qu'il faut que je fasse dans ce point de compromis, tu sais. Fait que je m'en vais payer ma facture, soutenir la TRD, pouvoir payer un peu d'argent, ça va être un peu bon, mais à part ça...